Las Vegas, Nevada. Best known for gambling, entertainment, and for a short period of time in the 90s, its thrill rides. In the now 3 decades since the first Vegas thrill rides opened, many have come and most have gone. Speed the Ride, Desperado, MGM Adventure Park, the High Roller, and Insanity. The only addition still thriving to this day is the Adventuredome. Adventuredome houses 2 roller coasters, an Aero Looper Canyon Blaster and an SNS El Loco sharing the same name, as well as an assortment of flat rides, including a Chance Inverter, Zamperla Nebula and Disco, and more. The park is loosely themed to the Grand Canyon and has been using its 5 acres to the fullest since it opened. Recently, I attended the American Coaster Enthusiast first Viva Las Acers event. This event included a Q&A with the park's lead ride engineer, Joey Rukavina, who gave some great stories about his time at Adventuredome, Magic Mountain, and Speed the Ride. He also gave insight into plans for possible new additions to the park, which is what I'd like to dive into for this video. I have about 10 things I want to cover in this video, and we'll cover the big one first: Chaos. This is the park's Chance Chaos ride. It operated for almost 3 decades and recently was removed, and now with confirmation from Mr. Rukavina, we know it's not coming back. To sum up what happened, one of the larger pieces in the middle holding the whole thing together snapped about 2 years ago in 2021. The original plan was to replace this part and get the ride back up, but they had to wait on approval from the higher ups in the company. By the time they got approval, the part that they needed was discontinued, and Adventuredome does not want to take sole responsibility for any of their rides. The only ride in the park they take sole responsibility for is Roadrunner. The decision was made to take the ride out and replace it with something new. What we do know about this replacement is that the higher-ups are pretty much just going shopping at IAAPA as we speak. Now that the ride is completely removed and they have the proper measurements, they're just going to IAAPA to find something that fits the plot. So we should be seeing a replacement for Chaos in the near future. Hopefully it's just as eye-catching as that spot was one of the most photogenic parts of the park when Chaos was operating. This should also bring life back to that part of the park and just help overall. During my last few visits, Chaos not operating definitely left a bit to be desired. A few more things we did find out was how the park installs new rides and the manufacturers they're willing to work with. Having visited the SNS headquarters a few weeks prior, we know that SNS and Adventuredome still work together, as Circus Circus has its own little section in the Aero Room and the main parts room. So another project with them is not off the table. The only manufacturer Adventuredome would not work with again is Wisdom Rides, who gave them Roadrunner. The reason Adventuredome takes sole responsibility for Roadrunner is because Wisdom gave them a defective product and then left them in the dark, so pretty much anyone else in the park's price range is on the table. As for installing rides, the park actually has to work with weight distribution, making it more difficult to just toss a ride down somewhere in the dome. This is why the corner of the park with Nebula Z has a lot of space between rides, when they could easily fit another one if they moved them closer to each other. Some last updates before we get into the proposed and cancelled projects. The Spongebob SquarePants ride that's right outside of the dome, we did not get any info from the Q&A besides the fact that it's opening in spring 2024. Of course, there's stuff being revealed at IAAPA as I'm recording this, so I'll be showing that right now. The Lazytag seems to have closed permanently as there is major work being done inside. The mini golf will likely be relocated, while the park does not currently have plans to relocate Lazytag. By taking out Lazytag and the mini golf, this opens up a huge plot of land for the park to work with, and we could see something major come here very soon. And finally, when asked if expanding outside of the dome was a possibility, we found out that it's been considered multiple times, specifically in the parking lot right outside of the dome. But that's about it for confirmed stuff. Getting into cancelled and proposed projects, the park was actually planning a new family roller coaster fairly recently. The plans were in their final stages when MGM sold Circus Circus in 2019, and when changing owners, many plans for the park were scrapped. We don't know any details about who the manufacturer might have been or even where in the park it'd be, but to know they were looking for a new roller coaster as recent as 2019 is great to hear. Branching into the defunct Rim Runner, we found out a lot of things about how the park was designed. For example, the dome shakes the way it does when Canyon Blaster goes through its layout because the large bodies of water were designed to absorb it. And with Rim Runner long gone, there's nothing to combat that. Of course, the dome is still perfectly safe, but it's a cool thing to know. As many know, the lift structure for Rim Runner has been enclosed in the rockwork. We had assumed it would just be really expensive to remove, but it's actually just impossible. The structure is sealed inside the rockwork, so they'd have to take out the rockwork altogether to get it out, which they do not want. So it's just sitting there. Now, many enthusiasts have wondered if the lift structure can be repurposed for a roller coaster, and this was never on the table. However, they did propose turning the lift structure into a giant slide, similar to what you'd find at a family entertainment center, only about 90 feet tall. This is not what thrill seekers would want, but I do think this would make a really fun and unique addition to the park. For the turn towards the drop that is still under Canyon Blaster, it was proposed to make that sort of an observatory, which would be really cool. Of course, you need to install some new ventilation systems up there because it can get hot. If you've ridden Canyon Blaster front row, you know what I'm talking about. This and the slide were only proposed, but I do hope that someday they can be realized, as it would add a lot to the park. And of course, what I found most interesting involved none other than Speed the ride. Mr. Rukavina was very passionate about this one, as he had friends who worked on Speed. They actually did the measurements and Speed would have fit in the parking lot outside the dome. And due to the dome's elevation, the supports would require no additional changes. After the previous project to revive Speed fell flat, Adventuredome was seriously considering buying it. Its station would sit around where the current go-karts are. The park was very serious about this ride. The only issue was the generator that powered the launch was still at Sahara. It was built into the building during the renovation that added speed and could not be removed. They would need to get a brand new generator for the launch or just retrofit it altogether. And if you don't see where this is going, S&S came on the scene. To renovate Speed would cost roughly the same as getting a brand new roller coaster. And the park already had other issues with the Rim Runner to address. So the park pulled the cord on Speed and installed El Loco instead. So at the end of the day, El Loco was the final nail in the coffin for the premier shuttle coaster. And that's about it. There were mentions of how reliable the two coasters are, and from the looks of it, Canyon Blaster will be safe for years to come. It's a very simple ride system that's incredibly reliable. El Loco still has things it needs to fix regarding its sound systems. Two of the trains have working sound while the others don't, so who knows if it'll ever get fixed. So what's the future for this park? While it's a bit more complicated than your average amusement park, I do think this park has a bright future. Everyone seems very passionate about the park, and from what we hear, the owner's kids love the place and are begging him for a new roller coaster. So fingers crossed, guys. If you enjoyed this video, you'll love my video on the 10 most underrated roller coasters in America, where you may find one of Adventuredome's rides. I'll see you there.